Love this podcast? Support us by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Hit the link in the episode description to support us now. Thanks for listening and enjoy.
So, guys, how deep are you into the world and literature of Edgar Allan Poe? Are you fans?
I read him in high school. I've only read 2 of his works.
Which are?
The Raven and The Cask of the Amontillado.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the 2 that I've read. Now, there's a chance I may have read a third and not know it was Poe. Because, for example, I didn't know Cask of the Amontillado was Poe. So.
Oh, until after viewing.
Until watching the most recent Edgar Allan Poe property.
Okay.
What about you, Eddie?
Yeah, I went through a phase like in high school and into freshman year of college where I was just really fascinated with Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
Were you gothy?
No, not gothy. I kind of like his sense of horror. Yeah.
Yeah, he's so synonymous with horror. I mean, so many things that we use as symbols for horror, like black cats and ravens, and just this overarching theme of madness that goes throughout his work. It's just something that has true staying power. And he's kind of like, I don't know, I hate to compare him to Tim Burton, but he kind of is the Tim Burton of literature in that sense.
Some might say that Tim Burton is the Edgar Allan Poe of filmmakers, no? Since Edgar Allan Poe came out first.
It's like saying the same thing in a different way.
It's more important because Edgar Allan Poe was first. Like, there's a big difference.
It's not about who's first, okay? We're just making comparisons here. But we're talking about Edgar Allan Poe because we're talking about a new property on Netflix that is not just an adaptation or a remake in our case, or a revival. It is very much a rehashing and also just a complete love letter to the works of Edgar Allan Poe. We're going to be talking about the 1960 film House of Usher and compare it to the new Netflix series The Fall of the House of Usher. They're going to be 2 different films and yet some core themes here, and it's a perfect send-off to spooky season since it's our last episode of October. So
I know. Can you believe?
I know. It went by kind of fast. This whole year did, but we'll talk about that soon enough. I am Nicole.
And I'm Rolando.
And I'm Eddie Z.
And this is Remakes, Reboots, and Revivals.
An original podcast
about unoriginality.
Before we get into this week's episode, I see that you have the copy of Britney Spears' book in your possession, Rolando, based on your Instagram post.
Oh, so, I was saying, this is like, I don't have it here. Where do you see that?
I know, I saw you
did Eddie buy his own copy?
No. Yes. How is it so far?
Oh, God, it's dreadful. It's
like the writing is dreadful, or it's what she's talking about?
All right. So basically, it's written like an infant. Like, I had to sit through the first, try to muscle through those first 5 chapters of her childhood, which I personally don't care about. Like, I wish she would have just started right on I was on Singing with the Stars. What is that? It was like that kids talent show, or like that talent show with the children.
I don't know because I don't watch.
You know
that
what?
kind of stuff,
I think it's I forgot who. It's like a famous white old man who hosts it.
Ed McMahon.
There's so many.
I think it was Ed McMahon.
Oh, the one that she was on when she was a child. Star Search?
Star Search.
That's it. See, I knew it was Star something. Just start there. I don't need to know about your grandmother who may have been senile, and the other one, great grandmother who committed suicide. I just don't care about any of this.
Wow. You just want the juicy stuff. You just want to hear about, the abuse, I guess.
And then the other thing I noticed is the margins in this book are so wide. Right? I showed Eddie. I was just like, Eddie, I'm not crazy. These margins are huge, right? Eddie?
Yeah, they're huge.
They're huge. There's huge margins, and like each chapter is like 3 pages. I'm just like, yo, like this is let's not call this a book. Like they should have made it a coloring book, in my opinion, right? With like a 1 page of coloring book that maybe hand drawings by Britney Spears of her memories, and then like someone giving me like an actual synopsis of what the fuck is happening. That would have been a way better book.
Yeah.
You know what? That's how I'm gonna do my memoir.
That's actually an interactive memoir is such a fun idea.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, Rolando is a big Britney Spears fan, despite all of this. So
I
in your
do
own
like,
way.
I do like. I'm not like the biggest Britney Spears fan. Like if I did a trivia, I'm not gonna say I want to win, but I would definitely be in like the top 25 percentile.
Well, if you read the book, maybe you would.
If I read the
Ooh.
if I finish the book, but that's I don't know. Like those first 5 chapters were already pretty much soul drenching and stuff because the vocabulary is so limited.
Now, how many pages is it?
Like 280, I think.
Wow, that's not long at all.
Oh, not only is it not long, but like considering like half of it is margins, it's it's basically like 120 pages.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing your thoughts so far on this book that doesn't sound that enjoyable.
Yeah, follow me on Instagram, guys. I'm going to be complaining a lot about it.
Now, is it not what you expected, though?
What do you mean?
Like, did you expect something to be, so in detail and kind of
I was hoping
beautifully written, or?
Well, I was hoping the ghostwriter would have tried a little bit more, but it seems like the ghostwriter was phoning it in. You know, it was ghostwritten. I'm alleging this, but let's be very honest here. Like, it was probably ghostwritten,
or maybe it wasn't.
I highly doubt that. I truly highly doubt that was not ghostwritten. But the other complaint I had was like the cover has like this weird kind of graininess to it that was driving me crazy.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't glossy. It was like kind of like sticky and it was gross.
Great.
Yeah. That's not Britney's fault. That's just that's the publisher, I guess. But I was just that called me up. Eddie, you heard me complain about that, right? I'm like, what the? I was like, what is wrong with this?
Like a film.
Yeah, it was weird.
That is weird.
But okay. I got it on the first day. It got sent to me, and I'm trying to read it. And someone I went to college with, she was posting on my Facebook page because she got it too, but she's so upset because it came in Spanish.
Oh my god!
Like I didn't even know that they already had it translated in different languages. But
that's crazy.
Well,
they do that, I'm sure, beforehand when they know people are going to want to read it. So, yeah. But okay, thanks for sharing. Let's get into today's topic, which is Edgar Allan Poe, essentially. Now, the new series by Mike Flanagan, we've covered him before because he has done kind of like a trilogy of haunted house series on Netflix. The first being The Haunting of Hill House. We didn't cover that one, but we covered the second one, The Haunting of Bly Manor.
We could have covered Haunting of Hill House, right? In theory. It was just like...
In theory, we could have, yeah.
But that was also before... Did we start our podcast yet? Or we just...
I think it was like right around the time, and it just kind of slipped through our fingers. We did Bly Manor during the pandemic, and now, all these years later, he's finally doing this third one.
Now, in retrospect, Bly Manor, your thoughts, has it changed?
No, I still really enjoyed that. And I think Mike Flanagan's just really entertaining and can make something that's really spooky and haunting, but also really emotional, and I really like that. But in retrospect, my thoughts kind of have changed just because, like, I do think that at the end, that love story that like really closed out the series was kind of like thrown in at the last second and definitely seemed to change courses halfway through thinking back about it.
What? The whole series was about courting this young woman, dealing with the fact that she was a lesbian, and then like courting the florist. That relationship was just thrown in hell.
I don't know if that's what the whole series was.
The whole that was her major story arc. It was like throughout all the episodes, like kind of the progression of the relationship and stuff. So it wasn't thrown in. I still hold it near and dear to my heart. I think it's so good.
No, well, the other thing is that I'm just really tired of all lesbian love stories ending in tragedy.
So that's so interesting. So my therapist, who she herself identifies as, well, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but anyway, but she too loved Bly Manor because like the queer storytelling. And even though it's a tragedy at the end, we were talking about it at the end of my session, about like how just it was still like a beautiful like love story at the end.
Yeah, it
Despite
was a nice
it
love story about
being tragic.
Yeah. Well, regardless, if you want to hear the initial thoughts, listen back to that episode. You can find that on our Podbean, I believe.
Or on our website.
Or on our website.
RebootsRevivals.com.
Yes, which I totally knew we had. so, so today we're going to be talking about the first, I think, like big, prolific, and most famous version of this short story by Edgar Allan Poe, which is The Fall of the House of Usher. The movie's called House of Usher, and it came out in 1960 with Vincent Price, and it's by Roger Corman, who is the king of B movies. He pretty much taught like Martin Scorsese and Peter Bogdanovich and all these other filmmakers, how to make a movie on a budget. And he was a brilliant businessman. Other than he like gave all of these prolific filmmakers their first big break, and he taught them, kind of shoestring guerrilla filmmaking. And this is some of his most famous works. Actually, in the 60s, after the success of this film, because it was quite successful, they went on to make 8 more films with Vincent Price doing adaptations of Edgar Allan Poe works.
Oh,
so there was,
when I looked up his filmography, there was like The Raven.
The Raven, The Gold Bug, The Mask of the Red Death, The Black Cat, like all of these, and The Pendulum. All of these movies were made.
Which will become episodes. I guess we should have seen the whole collection of Roger Corman films.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, 8 films in the Roger Corman canon, 8 episodes of The Fall of the House of Usher.
Yeah. So. Oh, I guess that would have been a fun watch. I wish I had known. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So fun fact there. This was produced by American International Pictures, which this was like a huge film for them too. It catapulted them to be one of the most independent, at the forefront of independent filmmaking in America around that time. And like I said, it had a really minimal budget, but it became very successful.
It had the ugliest logo though, American International.
Yeah, that was before they really became AIP, as we're known. Okay. So anyway, also the short story by Edgar Allan Poe was adapted by an author named Richard Matheson, and Richard Matheson is an author of some of the greatest episodes of The Twilight Zone. He also wrote The Last Man on Earth, which became I Am Legend. He also wrote What Dreams May Come.
Oh. Wow.
And The Incredible Shrinking Man. So this is a man who really specializes in fantasy and horror and science fiction and whatnot. So cool. It's like him doing Edgar Allan Poe. What a feast. For a film that is very, in my opinion, play-like. So I'm very excited to hear what your thoughts are, Rolando, because again, this was a really small budget. It had like $300,000 of a budget. Half of that went to Vincent Price because they had to have a big name. So they're like, okay, limited sets, dialogue driven, but it really, really defined. And it's one of the first color films that I can think of in this country that really defined that classic Gothic horror house movie.
Interestingly enough, I didn't think it was a small budget when I was watching it.
Ah, okay. Yeah. I mean, smallish, I suppose.
Oh, I mean, I don't know what $300,000 was back then, but
yeah, that was kind of actually pretty generous, I would say, especially for an independent film.
It didn't feel like It didn't feel like a small budget, except for the fact that it was a small cast.
Yes.
Outside of that, I actually love the costuming. For example, like I thought the costumes were wonderful. And
costume's great. Set design's great.
Set design was wonderful. Overall in the movie, I thought it was campy as hell.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And it was actually like thoroughly entertaining because of how campy it was. Specifically,
it's a B movie. Yeah, it's Roger Corman too. Yeah, and Vincent. So the thing about Vincent Price is that they like bleached his hair for this.
Yes, right. Yes. What a look! Let me tell you.
Yes, he was. He was
so extra. He was
giving gay older brother just with all these elements, and I mean, every time was like your voice is so loud, like he was like his ears are so sensitive.
The way he cringes and like
I loved it.
Yeah, so
body.
I don't know if you guys know, but for the most part, it has been kind of confirmed that Vincent Price was gay.
Really?
And and that he was in a marriage that was a marriage of convenience, and they were fine and stuff. Also,
Like
fun fact about
Evelyn Hugo.
Yes, exactly. His wife was also known to be gay. He was also like, yes, that is a gay woman. He was also like really into the culinary arts. So he was just like, to me, he sounded like the coolest guy in the world. He was such a chef. He was so into theater. He was a great actor. And he just, if you watch all of his movies knowing that he's a member of the community, like, you just appreciate it even more.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think of, well, yeah, I mean, there's a panache that he has. The few things I've seen him in, for the most part, the thing that I remember most is actually Scooby-Doo, like the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that's the Vincent Price that I really know. Not so much like his movies until later in life, because he was a Dracula too, wasn't he? Or am I making that up?
No, he was never Dracula. I don't think so.
Okay,
I mean,
I was making that up. Maybe in some parallel universe he was a Dracula.
Yeah, it's so funny because he's so synonymous.
So good at it.
He would have been. He's so synonymous with horror, and yet I don't think most people can name many Vincent Price films or like how they know him. Maybe they know him from Thriller by Michael Jackson.
Was that Vincent Price?
Mysterious Planet?
Something like that? No? Okay.
Are you talking about Forbidden Planet?
Maybe that's what I'm talking about. Was that also Vincent Price?
No, he was not in that.
Okay.
Did he host I want to say Mystery Theater?
So he kind of did. Yeah, he was also in a film called Theater of Blood. And he did a bunch of like television specials that were like horror themed. He actually acted out a bunch of Edgar Allan Poe short stories, and you could see them on YouTube.
Interesting.
I think his most famous films, in my opinion, would have to be The Last Man on Earth, The Fly, The House on Haunted Hill, Last Man on Earth, The Tingler, and of course these Edgar Allan Poe ones like The Mask of the Red Death, House of Usher, and stuff. I saw that as in a revival in the theater where the Tingler got loose and the back of your seats tickled. It was great.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, so what is this movie about? Well, there's a young man named Philip. He travels to the House of Usher, which is a mansion kind of like in the middle of nowhere, because he's there to kind of like meet up with his fiancée and pick up where they left off. And her name is Madeline. But when he goes there, he meets Madeline's brother, Roderick. And he's just like, yeah, about that whole marriage thing, kind of not going to happen because my whole bloodline is cursed. And if you do, like, she'll go mad and then I'll go mad and then blah, blah, blah. So we should actually probably kill her.
Yeah.
That's me summing it up.
Yeah, because first of all, he did not give any real explanation. Throughout the whole movie, everything was like in this shroud of mystery. You know, like he was like, you can't marry because she has an illness.
Yeah.
You know, my ears, please, you know, take your shoes off. You know, all these like different things that are going on. But it was he never, ever answered a direct question. Direct question.
Right.
Never.
Yeah.
It's true.
Never.
I do remember that monologue when he was talking about the only the softest
clothes, right?
Can touch me. Only the most plainest of food can touch my tongue. And it was just like this huge monologue of his afflictions. I'm just like, what kind of disease does this man have?
Yeah. I mean, he just he took that performance to 11.
It was so hammy. I love it.
It's so hammy. Yeah. It's so great. And I don't know whose choice it was to give him the hair that they did. But God, I hope it was him.
Perfect.
It was. No, I love the hair too. Like that hair was
perfect.
just. It was just like it was so obnoxiously blonde.
To the point where it was white,
blinding. Yeah.
Okay, so what I found interesting was the sense of that there was this gloom in the mansion, but in contrast to all these bright colors, because the color red was so pronounced. Definitely.
And Philip's blue jacket.
You know, and there were a lot of rich colors coming across. But I just love the scene where where she's like, she hears him. He's there. I said, oh, Philip, I can't believe you're here. Why'd you come? I said, I come for you, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, she is sick. She needs to go back to bed, right? And then it's like, I think it's like they're going to meet for dinner or something.
Yeah.
And she's wearing this amazing red dress.
I know. And she was
She was snatched from head to toe. She looked the most healthiest I've ever seen any human being look. Walking down, basically skipping down, gliding down those stairs into the arms of Philip. And then what happens? The chandelier falls. It's
yeah.
Everything is ruined. We must go back to bed. Everyone's dying.
Yeah. It's
yeah.
I feel like it's unintentionally funny, or maybe it is. Ooh, you're probably disrupting the mic, Kitty. Hold on.
Okay, Kitty.
I'm so sorry. Buddy. But it's so he pretty much is like, Madeline is like, we need to kill her. The house is going so mad. We're all just so mad. And Madeline has catalepsy. So sometimes, she kind of passes out and she appears dead, but she's not. So Roderick uses this as an opportunity to bury her and to force, put her to death. And Philip's heartbroken. He's crying. And he's there weeping over her grave, and so is Roderick, and all of a sudden it starts moving and something, and he's literally oh, we gotta get out of
here. And it's it's so funny because he closes the casket so and then Philip is like, can I see her one last time? And he goes, no. And then it's and then of course he's sick, so he's of course he wants to carry the casket. And Philip is like, can I do this? He's like, no. But Philip does it anyway.
Meanwhile, the poor butler is
the butler is
adding
to it. But I felt like he was more causing more problems than helping out in that situation.
Yeah.
Because carrying a casket like that on the side, it wasn't.
It was kind of a silly sequence. I agree. Yeah, but speaking of sequences, soon after it, it's Philip's nightmare, which is probably the most beautiful sequence, I think, of the whole film. Where we have this Technicolor dream as he's seeing all the ghosts of the Usher family, and he's getting visions that maybe Madeline is still alive, right? That's what happens.
And the butler, is pretty much she has catalepsy, where she appears dead, and he's like, butler, what?
The writing on this was a little rough at times because the butler is just she has I've said too much.
Yeah.
She has cataplexy or catalepsy?
Catalepsy.
Is cataplexy something else?
I don't know.
I've heard it associated with
it's plexiglass that looks dead.
Oh. Wait, are you being serious?
Yeah, no.
Oh, okay. All right. No, I've heard the term cataplexy, which is a medical. I think is related to not insomnia. What's the opposite of insomnia? The one where you fall asleep.
Narcolepsy. Yes.
Anyway.
So she obviously is not dead. Philip figures this out, but when he goes down to try and rescue her, she's already escaped, and she's pissed off, she's mad as hell.
Oh, is that what happened? I thought they moved her.
I think so. She breaks free. Right?
She broke free, but that's when he that's when he finds the second coffin. The first coffin was empty.
That's right.
And then the second coffin though is full of blood and stuff, which is from the short story. Because I read bits and pieces of the short story for this and stuff to kind of see what is the recurring theme of the fall of the House of Usher. Do you want to know what they are?
Oh, well, one is madness.
No, well, I meant the what are the elements of the House of Usher, the actual physical story that's present in both the short story and the two properties.
Oh, okay. Do you want to share now, or
I can share it later?
Okay.
Just remind me because I tend to forget.
Okay. Yeah, and so she's upset. She's out free. She's totally mad. Doesn't even see Philip. She's just dead set on murdering Roderick for what he did to her.
Which, I guess is fair.
So great. Yeah.
But that is actually, you're right. The choking scene and then the fire happening at the same time.
Yeah.
The house
so
is
dramatic.
rumbling. It's just
This
But
whole
then the
movie.
butler throws himself.
I know he collapses with the house too. Yeah.
Like, it's just
So-
like the poor butler did not deserve this. Like, he was
Yeah.
just the help, you know?
Yeah. The house is like falling apart and stuff. And I love how Vincent Price is just like there drinking and he's like, you're going to want to leave because this house is going to collapse.
Yeah.
But like, if you don't want to, that's fine by me.
Yeah.
This whole movie feels like a kind of like interactive show that I would have loved to have gotten a ticket for and like been walked through and just watched
Yeah.
for like
I see what you mean.
a night out. Like this would be a great, like kind of
a
like
Sleep
a
No More?
queue for
Yeah,
the haunted
yeah.
mansion.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like there's never a ride. It's just like you're going through this haunted mansion and seeing all these scenes acted out.
Mhm.
So that would be really fun. The fact that somebody that to my knowledge has not done this already with also like the over-encompassing works of Edgar Allan Poe
Uh-huh.
is a shame. Like, hello, that's the ultimate Halloween ticket right there.
And talk about, what's it called? It's public domain stuff.
I know they
So-
did like pop-ups and stuff of Edgar Allan Poe, but I mean, like
Yeah.
kind of like a Sleep No More.
Maybe there'll be more. I mean, I feel like Edgar Allan Poe is about to enter his renaissance.
Maybe he
Because-
always has like he keeps coming back. Like every 10 or 20 years or something, he comes on really strong.
What was 20 years ago?
I feel like 10 years ago, Edgar Allan Poe was like really big, and then he kind of died down. Like they were,
What?
like
don't
I
remember
said,
Edgar
pop-up
Allan Poe being
bars and
popular
stuff.
10 years ago.
I
Oh, I guess maybe people like the aesthetic.
that's the thing too. It's not just like everybody's out reading his work. It's more so
Right.
like, you know, just quoting little things, or like the aesthetic kind of pops up and stuff.
And just the
So-
madness and stuff. I mean, I'm surprised he wasn't like more popping during COVID, if you think about it, right? Just us stuck in a house,
Yeah.
our homes going mad.
Yeah,
This is totally Edgar Allan Poe-esque.
it is. No, I would agree with that. I kind of though want to shift to the Netflix show just because there's so much to talk about with this show.
Okay,
that
quick,
there
quick,
really is.
quick comment.
Go.
The actor that played Phillips, Mark
Mark Damon.
Damon, right?
So handsome.
Ridiculous. Ridiculous. He was like giving me Clark Kent Superman.
Yeah, like, first of all, I forgot who Vincent Price was, so that was my first question. Like, this is Vincent Price, and it was like, no, this is what's going on. Like, Vincent Price.
That's great.
Because
Yeah.
he's the first person we see on camera. Like, Vincent Price had top billing, so it's just like, oh, so this is Vincent Price, and he's like, no, this is most certainly not. But what a handsome man! And then Eddie goes on to tell me that he goes on to quit acting and become a producer.
Yeah, well, he had a big career in Italy in the '60s. He was like,
Yes.
like
Spaghetti westerns.
He did a lot of westerns and whatnot over there. But yeah, he never had quite the career over here, and he's still alive. He's still
Yeah, that's the other thing Eddie told me.
It's still
Yeah.
alive.
So I don't know.
And,
Maybe
and still working.
get those
according-
digits. Yeah,
and
no,
still working.
Good for
Mhm.
him. Good for him.
absolutely good for him. Yeah, yeah, that's true. I should have. Yeah, Mark Damon is really handsome.
You didn't. What? So was Madeline. The actress who
Yeah,
played Madeline was beautiful.
She was fine.
I thought she was very beautiful. Her hair and like, she was very voluptuous.
Myrna Fahey. Yeah, she was a big TV star. I don't know if she ever really crossed over to movies, but yeah.
Well, I liked her
The
in this.
movie belonged to Vincent Price. So.
I mean, yeah, Vincent Price
it did.
stole the
Yeah,
show,
he
but
stole
like,
the show. The crazy
Yeah.
older brother, but and I mean, you do get that little scene, that little hope scene that they did really well, where Philip is like, Madeline, let's go, just you and me. We're gonna go. We're gonna go
Yeah.
back to Boston and everything like that. And she's so hopeful, and so it does really do good in that sense of like, even though you know how it ends, but you get this moment of maybe they can escape.
Mhm.
Maybe they go. And of course, the classic no, you separate.
That's
It's
true.
like, hey, why don't you go pack? I'll pack and we'll get out of here in an hour. No, you get out now. You leave everything behind and you get out now.
Yeah, it's true.
Together.
It seems like Philip is
together.
pretty
You never
well
say
off.
like an hour. Never go pack.
Seriously.
Never separate.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
Nicole, the one thing I wanted to also point out though about this film though was you mentioned that Vincent Price may have in fact been a homosexual, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had read some queer undertones in his performance, and I was wondering if just like, oh, is this all like internalized homophobia because he is a homosexual? He is punishing himself because he is the end of the bloodline.
Could be.
And he's taking his sister with him just because, like, well, fuck her too.
Yeah.
Or because it also they were borderline incestuous. Like his relationship
Exactly.
with her felt very incestuous too.
That's what's so good about his performance is that he leaves like enough room for there to be multiple interpretations of how he's doing it. And I just think that that's overall his energy, though. He's, for being like the guy who's most associated with like the macabre or whatever, he's bringing very feminine energy to his performances. Which is, I think, why he's one of my favorite old-time actors. Like, you watch any movie he's in, he's always kind of giving, kind of like, for, I hate to like just chalk it up as like gay energy, but it's so contrast to the other type of male performances of his time. So yeah, but I think everything you said, yes, yeah, there's some homosexual undertones, yes, there's incestuous undertones, of course he's completely mad, or maybe he's totally right about all of this. So
yeah,
leaves enough room for it. Yeah.
Okay. Just something I pointed caught. I was.
Did you enjoy it?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, it was a short film too, 80 minutes. I'm just like, count me in. Like that is just maybe that. I think that's maybe 10 minutes longer than the longest episode of the House of Usher, which I think is the final episode.
Yes, the final episode is about like almost 80 minutes. Yeah. Oh, okay.
So so it was like 10 minutes more, and I got a whole film out of it, which I love. You know me.
Yes. No, absolutely. So wait, did you like? I mean, so, but like, it's an in and out short film, but did you actually enjoy it?
I did. I actually think because of, first of all, I wasn't kidding when I said I love the costumes, I love the set design. It was beautifully orchestrated. That sequence, the dream sequence, I think was visually wonderful to watch.
Yeah.
I was, because at this point I was already familiar with the House of Usher, and I was just like, oh, this is like way outside of the House of Usher, the actual short story, right? With the, except for the ending. The ending is basically the House of Usher story. But yeah, no, I actually I liked it a lot. I it's, you know, I'm not a big rewatcher, so I'm probably never gonna rewatch this. But there was some parts about the film that I did like because, you know how sensibilities changes with audiences. Like Eddie and I were saying, is like when they first showed the skeleton like falling out of the casket, we were like imagining like, oh, the people back then must have been so terrified by this. Like, oh my goodness, heaven clutching pearls, you know? You tell me, like, yes or no? Yeah,
probably. I mean, it was kind of also B-movie ish. So like, I think the most success, like, it came out the same year as Psycho. So you know, comparatively, again,
but that's a different kind of fear. You know, I feel like Psycho was a psychological.
And this one in itself too. I mean, that's the whole idea of Edgar Allan Poe's writing. It really plays with you. It gives you these images. A lot of sensory stuff are in play.
Absolutely.
And you never know whether what you're seeing or hearing or smelling is real or in your head.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a lot of Edgar Allan Poe's approach, and always the anticipation, the dread, this dread that just builds and builds, and it soaks like just like wet rain, cold rain, just like seeping into your clothes, and it's like gets heavier and heavier until it's like, I'm dead.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
And also think about the fact that people didn't really like see murder or like, you know, any things like this. This was still the era of the code.
Yes, that was the other thing. So as I was thinking maybe the ending would be a little different because this was a code film. Yes,
exactly. Of course, they didn't. It wasn't a big studio movie, so they did kind of have a little bit more. But anyway, they still, if they wanted mass distribution and stuff, they did have to adhere to it. But but now we are living in a day and age where not only do we not have a code, but everything's kind of been done, and you know we're so used to horror, and we're so used to murder and blood and sex in film and television. You know, how can you possibly shock us or show us something that we haven't seen before?
Okay, so, are you admitting that you may have been shocked a little bit?
There was a sequence in particular where I was like, okay, wow, they did that.
Oh, I'm so curious. All right, we'll talk about it.
We'll
I can't
talk
wait to hear
about
which
it.
one. It might be mine also, but all right.
It might. I mean, I would hope so, because if you were like, "Man, that was fine," then okay.
I think we're on the same page.
Okay. So, like I said, this is the third trilogy in Mike Flanagan's Haunted House series. He's also the filmmaker of Gerald's Game and I believe Hush and Dr. Sleep, which we also covered on this podcast.
Oh, I forgot about Dr. Sleep. Yeah, Mike Flanagan is becoming one of my favorite like names, I think, when it comes to like directing and like just this genre in general.
No, he's one of the best currently right now working in the genre of horror. And even though this is called The Fall of the House of Usher, it's pretty much a love letter to the complete works of Edgar Allan Poe. So it takes a bunch of different characters and situations and scenarios of different Poe works, and it puts it into this whole non-linear story that goes from like the 50s to today. And it's all about the head of a pharmaceutical company corrupt kind of family, which is run by Roderick Usher at a company called Fortunato.
Yeah, what a name for a company. Like, it sounds like furniture, like Fortunoff.
Fortunato,
like,
yeah.
Like,
well, Fortunato, like every other fucking name, is a reference to an Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh,
story.
is that? Okay, I didn't know that. So,
Fortunato is the character in the Cask of Amontillado.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. All right, that makes sense considering how. Wait, how much have you seen? Did you see the whole?
I watched the whole thing.
Oh, we suspected
I'm so proud of you, Nicole.
I
was
like
proud.
I did for the other ones. So.
Yeah, like me and Eddie were like, I feel like Nicole's gonna finish this one because like this was like a solid piece of like television. So all right, great. So yeah, so Fortunato, that makes sense when you know the connection of like how he ended up becoming the head of the company. All right, great. I love that.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
So
or at least I don't remember from high school. So, you know.
Oh yeah, that was when you okay. So
yeah,
it's
about
like
the last time I read Cask of Amontillado.
But I'm sure you remember what happened at the end of it. So it's about the rise of power of Roderick Usher and his right-hand man, his twin, Madeline Usher, and them, heading this company of Fortunato, and then their whole kind of family.
Yes.
And Roderick Usher has 2 children from a marriage to a woman named Annabelle Lee. That's Tamerlane and Frederick. But then he also fathered a bunch of bastard children because he liked having sex. And so he had a daughter, Victorine. He had a daughter, Camille. He had a son, Napoleon. And he had a son, Prospero. Which, did all of these different women across the world get the memo that they had to name these sons and children like ridiculous names like Napoleon and Prospero?
Those were the most ridiculous names. I feel like he had a hand in that with the money of which he has. I'm sure it's just like, here is the deposit for the naming rights of this child.
Yes.
You know?
So when the series begins, the Fortunato company is being brought to trial because they have been the makers of a drug called Ligadone, which is very similar to Oxycontin. Yeah. And there's a
very, very loose, very, very. It's basically the Purdue family. This is what we're kind of seeing.
Yes.
They're the ones who
Slacker family, the Sackler family, Purdue family, blah blah blah. And then at this trial, the guy Auguste Dupin, who is bringing them to trial, says that there is a
he's representing
not a mole, a snitch within the family, an informant. Thank you, an informant within the family. And so it triggers kind of like this thing for Roderick to be like, I'm going to freaking catch this rat and I'm going to kill this rat. But then all of a sudden he starts losing it. And this ripple effect of events starts happening to his entire family, where his entire family within the span of 2 weeks dies.
Yeah.
And literally the House of Usher falls. And we come to find out how this is throughout the course of 8 episodes. And pretty much most episode is dedicated to another child dying. Yeah. So, and they're all die in different ways based on Edgar Allan Poe stories. So, can you name them all, Rolando?
I can name a few. The Black Cat.
Yes. So the most famous one, I think, or the easiest to spot, the Black Cat, is how Raven. Napoleon dies.
The Raven the Raven was an overarching character, but we had Lenore and the Nevermore over and over again. Cask of the Amontillado.
Yes, that none of the children died in that way, but they got their fortune at Fortunato by doing the Cask of Amontillado. to Griswold.
Yes. Oh wow, you
who was
remember the
actually
names and everything.
because he was a real life contemporary of Edgar Allan Poe, who he had a rivalry with, so they put that in there.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's so funny.
Yeah,
That was a satisfying death, though.
That was
Because
it's fucked up.
Oh no, yeah, hugely no, but like, cause Madeline, when she had the last break, it was just like, you are so small. It was just like, Madeline, I love you. Like Madeline, young Madeline was easily my favorite character in like the series.
Yeah,
she's so cutthroat, conniving. You just cannot trust her.
I know, same. And honestly, like the girl who played young Madeline in the 80s to like the older version, like they just, oh my god, they did so well, like complimenting each other.
There was points where like, what's it called? Like if you see her from far, like she looks like the young Madeline. And I was just like, that is crazy. Like that was a really good casting.
Yeah. And I love that they gave her that awful kind of like Donald Trump-ish wig.
I don't know what was up with that wig, because she took off the headpiece. She had beautiful hair. Just like, what?
I know,
that wig
right?
was doing you no favors, woman.
I think that was them like making fun of like rich people who think they look great, but they look ridiculous.
I think. Although I kept telling Eddie this, I kept wishing it was Catherine O'Hara playing her. I don't know why. It's just the vibe I was hoping for, but she was overall great. Like it was just still a great performance. So what are the other novels or stories?
So Frederick dies in the fashion of the Pit and the Pendulum, with the swinging pendulum slowly coming down on him. Tamerlane's story is a reference to the gold bug, but she doesn't necessarily die that way. Napoleon the Black Cat, Victorine the Telltale Heart. It's the beating of the hideous heart.
The Telltale Heart, yes. That's the other classic Edgar Allan Poe. I don't remember if I read that one though.
That's a great one. That's like 4 pages. Camille dies in fashion of the Murders in the Rue Morgue, which pretty much is one of the first murder mysteries ever written. And spoiler alert,
it was a monkey?
It was a monkey, yeah.
Wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
There you go, yeah. And then, of course, Prospero dies in a very similar fashion of the Mask of the Red Death. So
they had acid in the Mask of the Red Death?
They didn't necessarily have acid, but they all kind of were plagued, let's say.
Oh, I see. Okay, all right. I was curious. It's like, how is that?
Spoiler alert about the acid thing. So, yeah. That was the sequence that I was like, oh, wow, they went there.
Oh, yeah, no. Like, that was episode 2.
That was rough.
That was a rough watch, but
rough.
I was delighted. It was not delight. That's the wrong word. I was edge of my seat. I loved it. First of all, prior to, like, people melting in acid, you have Carly Gugino kind of, like, making her big monologue about, like, you know, this is her first big monologue with one of the children that we see. She usually monologues right before she's going to kill people. And you see her giving this kid a choice. She's like, don't do it. But he does it anyway. And now what happens? Consequences. And I think it was just, she was so good in that scene. Carly Gugino was just great in this whole series, though. Like, she just
she's
like,
so
everyone
hot,
was
too.
so
She's
good.
So hot. Yeah,
everyone was so good.
The thing too is that every time a member of the family dies, they're visited by a character, Carla Gugino, who is kind of the shapeshifter, and it's, to me at least, pretty obvious from the beginning that she's not quite human.
Yeah.
Because she keeps popping up in all these different scenarios with all these. She either has like the best wig collection on earth, or she's just not human. And she kind of, you know, talks them and says, it's not too late. You could either call him, or you could call this off, or you could leave right now. Right. But if you choose to go down this way, I'm just telling you, it's not going to be good for you. So she's kind of there, kind of, you know, being on their shoulders, trying to, you know, her name is Verna, which, you know, is anagram of Raven.
Although silly me for not catching that until much too late. I think, I think Eddie, you're the one who pointed that out. Yeah. It's just like, her name is Raven. It's I was like, what? Her name was, I thought he literally was just like, I don't remember her name being Raven. It's like, oh, Verna. I get it now. It took me too long. But yeah.
So the whole series is kind of told to us as a conversation that's happening between Roderick and this guy who's bringing him to trial, Dupin. And we even see they have this whole, you know, relationship.
They have a history
unfold.
Together. Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the in-depth showing of how the children die. So there's a lot to it. I mean, like, breaking it down plot by plot would take a while. So kind of let's just talk about like some characters and the way that they handled the story and stuff. You brought up Verna. who I agree, Carla Gugino is probably the best part of the show.
I don't know, cause like you know who I really loved, and
Who?
it's gonna be an interesting Roderick Usher. First of all, his voice.
Oh my god, his
Amazing.
voice!
Like
Yeah.
what a like truly what it just melts. Like it's
Yeah.
just, now here's a fun thing. You know that he wasn't originally cast for the show.
Yep.
He was reshot for the show. Yeah, because originally Frank Langella was one. Langella was the one who was cast as Roderick Usher. However, because he did some, I think, shady, sexy things to people on set, he was fired from the show. That's the alleged rumor, and he was replaced with the actor Bruce Greenwood. Yeah, Bruce Greenwood. He replaced him, and they kind of just reshot some things to like kind of fit him in. And I didn't know this until after I finished the series, and it was like seamless enough for me where it didn't bother me, or I didn't notice anything. And I think his performance was so good. He was so good.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you said it, his voice is like, wow, immediately.
Yeah.
Both him and Madeline, too.
Mhm.
Like, the older Madeline, they just play their parts so well. They seem so jaded and so vicious and so powerful.
And then the other nod that we should give to is the gentleman who played Dupin, Augustine Dupin. Who was he? Was it Carl Lumbly? Is that him? Carl Lumbly. He was the older Dupin.
Okay.
Dupin. I think he was great also. Like he holding his own against Roderick Usher. They were just like, I loved their scenes together as they were talking and stuff. It was just like, again, it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed the performances. I think everyone here, this was just like a very well directed cast, in my opinion.
For sure.
And let's not forget,
yeah,
Mark Hamill.
Again, another character, another
Totally
actor
did not
out
expect.
of the blue. I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought he was great.
A new addition to the Mike Flanagan cast of characters that always keep coming back.
I think Mark Hamill has like said, he's just like, he was so caught off guard when like someone asked him to be on the show. He's just like, okay, sure, basically.
Yeah.
And I think he was. Well, first of all, Eddie knows me. I'm terrible. You guys know me. I'm terrible with faces. So I was like, I saw the whole first episode, and afterwards I'm looking up the cast, and I'm just like, oh, Eddie, Mark Hamill was supposed to be in this, and Eddie's just like, what? Yeah, he's the lawyer. Like,
Yeah.
we saw him talking. I was just like, I didn't know that was him, but yeah, that's him.
Yeah. No, he did
liked
great.
him.
He did great. And they kind of are like the big back. Was that your dog?
Oh, you heard that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The backbones of this series.
Mm-hmm.
With Zach Gifford playing the younger Roderick Usher and Willa Fitzgerald playing the younger Madeline in the flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
When right before the big night of 1980. Which, did you catch Another Brick in the Wall?
Oh yeah, I heard it. Playing.
Yeah, there's like such little Easter eggs throughout everything. Like it's really, they thought about it, and everything is chosen for a reason. So you kind of know what's going on even before it happens, especially if you're familiar with Edgar Allan Poe.
And that's the thing with his style too, because already he has trained us to look at the details, to look at the background, notice the people in the background. I mean, The Haunting at Hill House. How many times was I looking for any statue to move, and was quite surprised when they did.
Yeah.
Too. So he's trained you to be like, there's something extra. I'm giving you something extra here.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we said,
go ahead.
The way that the series is, structured is that every episode you pretty much see how another child dies. Did you find that kind of repetitive after a while? Or was it always fresh and new and you were ready for what's next?
Only because every episode, even though every episode I think ended with one of the children dying, it wasn't all exclusively about them. Right? Like each episode was so broken up where you're still getting bits and pieces of the overall, either the history or the current events with all the rest of the family, right? So it didn't, it wasn't something that I thought about. right? Except until, you know, once you hit a certain point in the show, it's all focusing on that kid, on that child's, you know, they're not children, but that offspring's death.
Yeah.
And it ends. Like, usually they die, and then we cut to title card.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because usually that's not a way that Netflix would like end an episode, because it doesn't leave you with like, oh, what's happening next? Because someone just died. You need a break. I sometimes needed a break sometimes because some of these deaths were kind of gruesome. But yeah, it didn't bother me the way they structured it. Did it bother you?
It didn't bother me as much as after a while, it did become a little repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
Because especially by the time I think we got to Tamerlane, I was like, this feels kind of similar to Napoleon. Like, just, you know, banging up everything around them, searching for either the cat or the lady in the reflection and
yes,
stuff.
yeah. Tamerlane is actually I'm sorry, not Tamerlane. Victorine was my least. Yeah, Victorine was my least favorite death.
Oh, really? Yeah, and even the Victorine episode, I was a little...
Yeah,
like let down from, not like to the point where I was like, oh, this sucks, but like around there it started kind of losing its pacing.
Well, Victorine was the last of the bastard children, right? And then it's like the two, then it's Tamerlane, and
then it's Frederick. Last but not least.
Frederick's
now that was great.
Satisfying.
Yeah.
Well, everything going on with his story too.
Oh, he was such a shit. Again,
well,
props to this actor, Henry Thomas here. He played this like entitled brat so well.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was a great performance, and the character was just absolutely vile by the end of it.
Yeah, so he's married to a woman named Morella at the beginning of the show, and they have the daughter Lenore, and everything seems great. But when Prospero and Frederick treats him like shit, right? And Prospero's young, he's hedonistic, he's got something to prove. So he's going to put on this big sex party at this abandoned building that the family owns because he's not paying attention to the meetings. He doesn't realize that it's condemned.
Yeah.
So he wants, for some reason, I think he drops something off to Frederick's, but Morella's there, and he convinces Morella somehow that she should come to this. He seduces her to coming to this sex party.
Uh-huh.
So Morella lies and goes to the sex party. And at the end of the sex party, because he thinks he's turning on sprinklers and it's going to rain on everyone, it pours acid.
Yeah,
because it's a condemned building. And everyone perishes except for Morella.
Now, interestingly enough, she's also the only one outside of the help, right? Because the help in the party was told by kind of Verna, leave, right? She can apparently like hint things to you. Marilla got a warning. Marilla stayed, though.
She did.
So her fate was hers also. Although, I don't know. I would have, because she was looking around and she saw like the help leaving. Why wouldn't you leave too? I would have been like, oh, something's about to go down. I'm getting the F out of here.
Right? Yeah. But she stayed.
She stayed. Now, this kind of ties into my ideas that I had for like the final episode, which is when Lenore dies. I thought Lenore was going to live because I thought we were going to find out that Marilla has just been cheating on Frederick throughout the entirety of their relationship, and that like it wasn't his kid, so therefore she's not an Usher. But unfortunately, that was not the case. I was hoping Lenore would be spared, right?
Yeah.
But,
well, I mean, come on, she's the character in The Raven who he's so
sad
about. Of course, she's gonna die.
Yeah.
Because her death was probably the one of I think of, and it was a final death, right? But it was the most impactful one because she was literally the only character with any moral
compass.
Any morality in them.
In the group.
Yeah, well, it was really smart too because they didn't show how she died, right? And it was less focused on the fact that, oh yeah, now here's another gruesome death and stuff, because she didn't deserve it. And the way that Verna even approached her was like, you know, I'm sorry that this has to happen to you, but let me tell you of all the good things that'll happen because of your death.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually kind of oddly touching, even though she dies.
Oh no, it was great. I mean, it was again great storytelling because, again, much to Cugino's performance here, because you could tell in her performance, you could see how much it's hurting her to do this, and she's just trying to really just calm this girl down and be like, "This is gonna happen, but look at what good is gonna come of it." It was great, great scene overall.
No, absolutely.
So, like when you had mentioned about like, I had asked this question to myself about like, why am I still enthralled with each episode? if I know there's a death coming, of one of the particular Usher kids. So the death for me gave me insight of the mystery of who Verna is. Each death reveals a layer of her, or a layer of her abilities too. Led to, is she we get the beginning of wondering of how real she is, or a figment of imagination, to is she a person with a vendetta, or now if she's a supernatural being, and if she's a supernatural being, then what is her issue with the Usher family too? So all these things kind of like get peeled back, and you see something about her that I find her so fascinating. I think one of the things that intrigued me is that she saw alternate timelines for some of the people there. Was it Frederick?
Frederick,
He's supposed to be a very good dentist. And
irony.
She said, when she looked at Madeline, she said, "I see you, not just who you are, but who you were and who you could have been." So her having this ability to see beyond the regular timeline too. And then when she speaks to Prim, and she says, "I was the one standing on the ice,"
Yeah.
And if you listen to what head honcho Usher was mentioning about Prim's adventures, was that he found a place where it seemed like they
had to commit cannibalistic acts.
Yeah, or no, but also where the gods had settled.
Oh, that's right. He did say that's like
there was like stories. A place where the higher intelligence had settled, an island, of some sort.
He had told that,
and I don't know if that was what he had saw, like a reference to that.
Yeah.
And then we learned that she's been existing throughout time.
Yeah. So that reveal,
that was both fun.
Okay, I thought it was fun, but it kind of, what's the word? It may have upset me a little, in a way.
Why?
So not that it upset me, but more so it kind of like took me a little bit out of it, because I don't know what it was. This could be just me. It's a
huge trope, by the way.
It like having the devil lady, like the implication here is that they've all made a deal with the devil, right? She is basically a version of the devil. They've all made a deal with her, and the people that we see are like people like Mitch McConnell. I forgot. Mitch McConnell was the one that stands out the most, recent one, but it was because he was so recent. I'm just like, it's why I was just like, I kind of wish they hadn't shown me this one. I was okay with some of the other photos, right? But it was when she is talking with Madeline and she's just like, "I told one of my clients that you could shoot someone in Fifth Avenue and get away with it. And they took the deal," right? They're implying Trump there. Again, I think it's just like, I don't take me. I'm so enjoying this world. I don't need to see. I don't need to like know about the real world that's happening a little. Maybe that's what it was for me. Like, it's just like, like,
yeah.
Like, I already believe that people have signed their souls to the devil. So like, don't give me that.
Yeah. Well, that too. Like, the whole show is such a thinly veiled critique of, like we said, the Purdue family, of Sackler family and stuff. And
Purdue, yeah. You're right. It was Sackler family. Purdue was the company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the fact that at the end that I just want to jump to the end in terms of your point.
Sure.
When it's like, oh, well, Juno gets the money, who I loved, by the way. Juno was hilarious. And she gives the money away. And then Morella is able to donate and start a fund and help millions of people and stuff. And these people, bad people die, and the good people live and do good things. I'm like, this kind of sucks for me, because this doesn't happen in real life. These people get away with it. And is it satisfying to watch fictional characters get what they deserve when I know that the real life versions don't?
So I can answer that for you, at least from my opinion, because this that kind of feeds into like when you ask, like, oh, watching these episodes, like, why did I keep coming back if I know none of that's gonna come? Because I kind of do like a good come up in story. These people deserve it, unfortunately. You know what I mean? Like, they deserve it, and I know in the real world it's not gonna happen. So this is the best I can do.
So you'll take what you can get, kind of a thing?
I'll take what I can get. It was, I mean, it was kind of satisfying watching the fall of the House of Usher when you are bringing into this lens of like that 1% and like their absolute disregard for human life.
Yeah.
And
I mean, when it rained, I think the scene that was so impactful is when it rained dead bodies.
Yeah.
As the sign of this is how many people you have hurt and brought misery upon.
then they look like a pyramid.
And it was just so very effective. Very effective.
Despite the fact of effective despite the fact of how kind of hokey and literal it is. It was still effective overall in like in the course of the episode that you're watching it, because at this point you're just kind of like, yeah, your family was kind of a shit show. And especially when you find out the deal that was made, because here's the thing, that's in the final episode, you find out why is Verna coming after them, and it's because the deal was made. I will give you a life of luxury, I'll let you get away with this murder you committed, and in exchange, you're not paying the price, the next generation will, and when you're going to die is when I'm going to take every one of your lineage away with you.
Yeah.
And
so
he quickly, and they debated it, right? It's just like, 80 years of like pain and suffering, or 50 years of like luxury they could never experience. And I don't know. I asked Eddie what would he pick, and I think we disagreed. Eddie, what did you pick?
I said I wouldn't take it at all.
Yeah, I considered. I would be like, I don't know.
So,
Like that seems like a pretty good deal. Like,
yeah. So I get a great future, but my kids, they sacrifice theirs. I sacrifice my own kids.
yeah, but you train them to not be shitheads and
But
stuff.
it doesn't matter.
power corrupts.
That's true.
Look,
This is that is a lesson that was also in this.
I mean, the thing with and what Venora had made clear, this could have been different for you. There was always for some they had a moment of choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether to leave, to not not cause the situation at the party. If the older son would have left his wife at the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
he would have died. She said you would have died
A peaceful
death because of your cocaine addiction that you were going or your cocaine intake. And the gift that, unfortunately the curse is bloodline curse. Bloodline. Lenore was part of the bloodline. And she was like, I'm sorry I got to do this, but you were good. You were good. And because of your goodness, it's not going to end here. Others will be affected. Others will change. Others will experience this goodness.
Which would be the other thing.
Your
I
mother.
guess I would want to tell my children. So if I made this deal with this devil, be like, okay, you guys cannot have biological children. Adopt and continue the family name that way. Would that count? I don't know. Would the devil be mad at me like a loophole?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, because she picked something that he already had.
Yeah.
That's true. That's what
So
made it.
that
I
he
guess
had
that's what
something
made it
to
worse.
lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's what's supposed to be what made it worse. Like he made this deal knowing he already had 2 children. That their lives were now at stake, right? If they were like, for me, making this deal is easier for me because I don't have children at the moment. Oh no, what did they said the pugs? Now I'm thinking about it, and I'd be like, I don't know if I could do that to these little angel babies.
Well, if you don't have children, then it would probably be Eddie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so we
does
tied
that
together.
change things? No.
No, I don't.
Nope. It's
Oh.
this isn't something you're doing together. If you are given this choice, the sacrifice that has to be made will probably be something that you love very much. And if you don't have children or something, maybe it's your mom, maybe it's Eddie. Would you still do it?
Yeah, I see. Not I'm doing it.
Yeah, he's still debating. Could you see? You see?
No, of course I wouldn't.
I can't
do it.
believe it.
Of course I
Can't
would
believe it.
not.
That's
But it's
That's great.
interesting. She gives the same deal to Prim.
Yeah,
She
to
gives
Pim,
a deal to Prim, and it's the question. I need something. I need something that you love, and he's like, now I wonder if it's true when he says, "I really have nothing. I have nothing to offer you." As part of this deal, so I'm just gonna take my chances with my future. What's gonna happen to me?
Yeah, but she seemed happy with his decision, despite the fact that it sounds like he made the decision because he had nothing to offer her, which then would kind of like nullify the decision. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, well, he had nothing to give, but maybe he did have something to give that we don't. He seems to be like a very private man.
Well, but she would have known it.
That's also true. Yeah, Verna,
She would have.
She would not have made the. She would not made the request without knowing.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. You're good.
I really feel like she knew it. He's protecting it, and she is happy or she is impressed
Right.
by it.
But yeah,
You
this
know?
character. I mean, this character Verna. Like, I mean, it was just fascinating. Like, it was just like a fascinating creature. Every time like they would just talk to her, I mean, Carla. She just killed it in this role, and I mean, yeah, it was just something so ethereal in her presence and stuff. It was just great in her performance.
Oh, she was, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can go on and on about this show. The one things I did want to say was between the short story and the film and this one, what are the parts that kind of are present in all of them? So in the short story, you are the visitor who comes over to visit Roderick Usher. There's a giant crack in his house, and kind of you're visiting him because Roderick Usher has lost everyone in his family except for himself, right? He is the last of the Usher. And you come to find out that he has one more person in the family, his ailing sister, who, after she dies, you help Usher bury. Now, you never really, the narrator, is just like, oh, you know, her cheeks are so rosy and stuff, though. Like, are you sure she's dead? And he's like, oh, it's just something that happens and stuff. So they bury her. And Madeline is always buried alive, potentially, because she always will break out of the coffin and she will always kill Roderick, and the house will literally fall atop of them while the narrator narrowly escapes. That is like the common recurring story, the common recurring theme. Roderick has gone mad, and which we got glimpses of in both of them, right? In the first one, we get that Roderick is not all there. However, we want to interpret that with Vincent Price, and in this version, he is losing his mind because he's going through a form of dementia.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Nice touch too, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then he's like, "Is this all really happening? Am I just going crazy?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And-
which I again, wonderful. It was a wonderful, because we didn't find that out until like a little bit less than halfway through the series, right? We saw him get the news, but we didn't know exactly what it was until later on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so he and Madeline have this tight bond as twins. You know, they actually buried their mother because they thought that she was dead, but she came back out of the dead, you know, came out of buried alive, almost killed them, went and killed their potential father.
No, I think it was their father.
Well, they never was confirmed, but they're pretty much the bastard children of this guy, who was the head of Fortunato. So it's already kind of like they're destined to go mad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is their fate. It's in their genes.
Mm-hmm.
And the kind of like backbone of the family, the one that's like, you know, cut the shit, let's be real, and got them to where they were, is Madeline.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't, I'm like, there's no way they're going to let, this character is not going to go down the way that Madeline always does. So I was kind of surprised when it did. And then not only that, but he was like, I'm going to treat her like she's Cleopatra. Like she's giving her an ancient Egyptian burial and cut out her fucking eyes.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the very end, but yeah, and that was a pretty like scene. So all right,
that
this is
whole
up to-
series was leading up to that last 10 minutes.
Yes.
Honestly.
So now I have a question. So you interpret it as a supernatural thing, like she did come back from the dead.
I mean,
Her and her mom.
I would say so. Yeah.
Okay, I actually think it was just what's it called? Like that she wasn't dead. Like she was, because it was the nightshade that she had taken. Right? He had poisoned her with nightshade, which we know is a paraplegic.
Paraplegic. Yeah.
Yeah. Agent, and then he did remove her eyes, and then put the jade on it or whatever it was. The same thing with the mom. I think the mom may have suffered a catalepsy, and just they didn't know. They were just kids. They buried her alive. She comes out, and in this fit of madness from her dementia, she goes and does kill. I assume the person that she feels is the reason they live in squalor, right? She looked at him. At least the way Roderick told the story, she always taught them that he was a good man. But I guess in the dementia, she realized, like, no, he's not. He's a piece of shit. Fuck him. He's going to die. And now here we go here. I don't necessarily subscribe that it was a supernatural death. I actually think she was buried alive, and now she's just, like, fucking acting out. Because by the end of this series, Madeline and Roderick are a little bit kind of going head to head, right? Like, here's what kind of drove me a little crazy about Roderick. It's like, Roderick, you have more money than God. Like, you can let go of this company. There's no reason for you had dementia. Like, just enjoy your wealth.
Yeah.
Why not? He got so mad when Madeline was going to take over the board. It's just like, bro, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it was
would
kind
still
of
be in the
frustrating.
family, but also, people who have privilege don't want to give up their privilege in any way.
I guess that's it.
She's also not only, he learns of the fact of she took over, or the board gave her power after she convinced him to commit suicide as part of the loophole, trying to find the loophole in their pact with Verna. Which
also made no sense, because that loophole was just like, but she said both of you, and that was very clear in the pact. Like, it's just like Verna was like, no, both of you. So it was like, what? Did she really think it's just like, Roderick, once you die, that's it, we're done?
Yeah,
I thought they were trying to. The reason he was confessing to Dupin was because part of the deal was just like no criminal liabilities. Him confessing to a crime would make him criminally liable, and therefore break the deal that they had.
Yeah,
that's what I thought they were gonna go, as they were gonna try to trick Verna, but that's not how they went. They just the house literally fell on top of them and stuff.
I love how everyone thinks that they're smarter than her.
But that's the thing. Yeah. I think everyone always thinks they're smarter than the devil.
Yeah,
you always think you're gonna outsmart the devil. You never will.
It was so interesting that there was sort of like this Faustian tale at the core of this, because that's not Edgar Allan Poe, which, I suppose could be somewhat misleading for a watcher. They'd be like, oh, the guy who sold their soul to the devil and then blah, blah, blah. Because there's all these other references that we've seen and we know. We just don't necessarily, some of us might not know that's Edgar Allan Poe or where it comes from and stuff.
True.
So that was a little interesting that at the core of that they added in this thing, because that's just, it's not Poe, but it's fine.
Let's be clear. Verna made it in the deal. Verna made it clear that it wasn't a selling of souls.
Yeah,
she wasn't going to be collecting souls.
She did say that.
All right, they were collecting misery upon the world. They were being benefited because she saw the potential of misery that he was going to inflict on the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't make more people probably have more deals with her. Right? If you're so miserable to a point, you'll probably call upon some, and I would. What would I trade, though, is a question.
This is true. Did you have a favorite character other than Roderick and Madeline? Or?
I like Dupin because what I liked about him was just and I don't know, you tell me if this was just what. Why do they keep bringing up the fact that he was gay? Why do you think they kept bringing up the fact that he was gay?
There was a lot of bisexuality.
Yeah, there was a lot of
bisexuality.
But Dupin kept making it very abundantly clear that he was in a committed homosexual relationship, right? He came out to Roderick in the 70s. Roderick asked him how's his husband. It just kept coming up a lot.
Yeah, I think the only true good people in this show were queers. Look at Victorine's girlfriend, who refused to go through with the heart transplant. Look at the boyfriend of Leo.
So I actually don't like, I didn't care necessarily. Victorine's death wasn't my favorite because it was kind of suicidal and it kind of seemed out of nowhere. But I think the story around it was tragic because, you're right. When the girlfriend died, I was just like, oh, that's of all people who does not deserve this, right?
Yeah.
Was her.
Yeah. The whole thing about the Telltale Heart is that the guilt is driving them mad, right? So they succumb to their guilt. Right. So the fact that she committed this because she was just so ambitious and she had so much pressure on her, it wasn't necessarily that she was suicidal. It was that she went mad with her own guilt.
Oh, yeah. Right. No. I meant that. But it was still she
punished herself.
She killed herself though that's how she died.
Yes.
She killed herself.
No, yeah. I know, yeah. But whatever. I'm just trying to get you to see that storyline in a different light. But
yeah, her guilt made her go crazy. Come on, I have seen the episode of The Simpsons.
Well, but also they all don't necessarily die the ways that they do. Like, it's not just the cat that throws them off of, the ledge or something. Like, it's something else at play that is killing them. Yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Like, it's symbolic for what's the demises of the family and all this stuff.
Okay. I see. All right, that's fair. That is fair.
Like, it was Frederick's abuse that killed him. And it wasn't just his abuse of drugs. It was his abuse of his wife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, anyway, end of his power. I guess for me, I liked Camille. I liked her whole, like, the way that she talked to her poor assistants. And, like, that was a reference to a story, because there's a story called Toby Dammit. So the fact that she kept going, Toby Dammit, I thought was a great little reference point.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that.
But it was also like, wow, these ushers, man, they have some weird sexual kinks.
Mm-hmm.
And very, very sexual people, very hedonistic lifestyles. I suppose.
Tamerlane's like kink was probably the weirdest one. It's just like, okay, so she like
the cuckolding,
it's a form of cuckolding.
It's watching cuckolding.
Yeah, like it was.
She's
it
a
was
voyeur.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, some people get off on watching, I guess. But
no judgment. Like I thought of all the siblings, hers was probably the least. Her sins seemed like the least. Like, she was a terrible person, sure, but like her sins didn't like seem to like affect a world. You know what I mean?
But yeah, but her focus, because also the thing too here is all of them had the opportunity to transform the world because they had this wealth. Right? And she created kind of like a goop version of like that would make you think about vanity, not about self-care, but about vanity,
which is one of the deadly sins. And
you see all the mirrors, the hall of mirrors, the mirrors in the bedroom. It is mirrors that really kill her. It is. She gets these girls, she gets these women to sleep with her husband, and the idea is that they have to look like her and pretend to be her, too. So it's almost she's witnessing a version of herself play out and control it like a puppet, without actually having to participate, physically in the actual things. And I think Verna said, well, I'm not absolutely sure if this is correct, but I think her thing was, if you would not have let him walk away when he was offering help, and if you would accept help, things would have been different. You would have died.
Oh, hers
things would have been peaceful.
But she also kept telling her, just sleep. I think she had a chance of dying in her sleep also, but like she kept adamantly not trying to sleep. So, and it was like a sleep-induced psychosis that she kind of suffered through at the end of that one. But yeah. No, that was. Who was your favorite of the children? Like, did you have one?
Well, I was saying Camille. Oh, Eddie. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. You mentioned Camille, which I agree. I think Camille was one of my favorite children. I'm trying to think of who. I think mine might be Napoleon, because I don't know.
Love him. You don't love the actor.
Like, he's so handsome. He's so hot. But no, I think. But there was I like him going mad and like kind of breaking the house apart, and like ultimately like by accident falling off the building. Balcony, I thought that you would have tapped out of this show at that point because of what the cat happened to the cat.
I know. I was like, but I read the Black Cat. I knew that shit was gonna happen, and it was clearly CGI'd. So
yeah, I did love. It was one of my favorite effects in the show when you see Carla with the hanging eye. Was that CGI or was that prosthetics? I don't know.
I don't know. I would hope it would be. Yeah.
Prosthetics. I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, maybe it might be Napoleon was my favorite of the kids. Eddie, do you have one? Or a favorite character?
Well, I really love Juno.
Yeah, Juno was hilarious.
And because I really also wanted to know. She's like a side character. You just really want to know what's going to end up happening to her in all these craziness. And the fact that, the kids ignored her, like she was experiencing my stepchildren ignore me. They treat me like shit. And they always ask the question, right? Like, even if she was in the room, they'll be like, Juno's not in the will, right?
Yeah.
And then the irony, she's the sole person of the will.
Sole inheritor. Before we wrap up, I want to point out one last thing. My favorite shot one of my favorite shots in the series was the ending. Just the ending on the family graves, because for me, there is something so interesting about this that like we as a society, like Americans, we're just conditioned to just chase after money and power and wealth and stuff, right? But why? At the end, we all end up in the same place, 6 feet under, right?
You can't take it with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, like that's the other thing. We can't take it with us. So there was just something I loved about that final shot where we see the entire Usher family just in one place, dead. And stuff. It works.
And her putting their tangible artifacts on their grave, you know, and like, oh, now your life is reduced to this, you know, and it's sitting on your grave where you can't touch it and it's no longer a part of you. Yeah. And also that Frankenstein speech.
Oh,
that
Frankenstein speech is another good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about
good
poor
little
Juno.
monologues. Yeah.
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 Oh, well, that's Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan loves writing monologues into his characters, and he's one of the few, I think, writers who can effectively do it without it sounding so... You're not bored, usually, when you're listening to his monologues, because, like, usually they're, like, interesting. Like, Madeline's monologue right before she dies was a good monologue, right? About, like, how, if everyone wanted kale salads, like, they would sell them at the fast food industry, right? They want us. They want our fucking people, but, like, you know, they're too fucking stupid. It was just, she was so vicious and so monstrous that, like, I'm so glad she died. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I loved it. It was,
I loved her.
Easily,
she was great.
This is easily one of my favorite shows. I think it was a great way to wrap up Halloween. If you have not seen it, guys, I highly recommend it. You know what? Check out also the movie. The movie's actually a very entertaining watch, and I think it does give into that Halloween season.
Yeah,
I'm losing my voice. Sorry.
There's so much to talk about here, and we kind of went all over the place. But hopefully, if you haven't seen it, we have convinced you to give it a try. Hopefully you haven't been kicked out of your Netflix account like I did, and I had to ask my mom to get me back in because Netflix is doing that now, and it sucked.
I know.
Anyway, but have you seen it? Do you have thoughts? Are you a Mike Flanagan fan? Are you an Edgar Allan Poe fan? Are you a Vincent Price fan? Reach out to us and let us know. Email us, remakesrebootsrevivals@gmail.com. Hit us up on social media. You can hit us up on Instagram at remakesrebootsrevivals, at Twitter at Remakes Podcast. We are active on Facebook, and on YouTube, just search for Remakes, Reboots, Revivals. And if you are a fan of this podcast, go to your podcasting platform and give us a rating. And if you are able to on Apple Podcasts, give us a review. That helps us grow and find new listeners.
Yep.
So, yeah. And damn, now that I don't have it to watch, what am I going to watch? Well, I guess I'll watch what we're going to cover next week. But I might need a Paramount Plus login for that, so...
What are we covering next week?
I thought we were doing Frasier.
Oh, I thought we were going to say that for Thanksgiving because of family, but I guess we could cover Frasier.
We can. Well, if we have something else, then I'm open to it. So we'll figure that out.
We'll figure it out,
off the mic. But until next time,
stay unoriginal.